It's a Burke Tuesday here on Sharp Money, and of course, Adam Burke is our managing editor over at VSiN.com. And as I take a look, he's got a ton of plays. He's got a ton of plays in the bowl games, a ton of college basketball plays. But here's the thing: everybody knows Burke. He's one of the good guys. So when we heard after the Jags bounced a bunch of Survivor contests last night that Adam Burke is one of 30 Circa Survivor contestants remaining. And Amal Shah told us earlier, right now, that ticket equals, what'd you say, Amal, about $280K?
Correct.
Okay, $280K. The three of us, Amal, Dustin, and myself, we got excited because, and here's the thing, remember when we put our $1,000 future on the 40-1 Bengals? And Adam texted me, and he said, hey, can I get a piece of that? And I said, yes, but we want a piece of your Survivor. And he said, no problem. I have the text right here. I'm reading it. So, Amal, I want to congratulate you. Dustin Swedelson, I want to congratulate you. And, of course, I'm always going to start with me because I'm an egotist. I want to say congratulations to me and a thank you to Adam Burke because we're in on the 280. So I think this should be a conversation about what we're going to do moving forward, Adam. Welcome. And, again, thank you, teammate.
Are you able to send me that text? Because I don't exactly remember that one.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no. I'll send it over.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Yeah, no problem.
I mean, I know you're a man of honor, so, you know.
Starts with honor, ends with honor over here. And, well, okay, I guess maybe I'm fibbing a little bit, but all kidding aside, congratulations. This is, again, to be one of 30 remaining. Why don't we just start with how you feeling? Like, we'll get into strategy, we'll get into what's going on moving forward, but it's got to feel pretty cool, no?
Yeah, you know, it was pretty chill for a while, you know, because there was so much time to go. And then the Lions lose on Thanksgiving when we had the Cowboys, and it was like, okay, like, you know, now this is kind of narrowing down quite a bit. And then, yeah, I mean, last night, the text back and forth through my partner and I with the Bengals finding a way to beat the Jaguars. It's a great situation to be in, you know. There's obviously still a lot left to go in terms of picking winners in these games, and also a lot of discussions being had, you know, about sort of creating partnerships and splits and all those kinds of things. And, you know, my partner, Mark Goldberg, SpookyExpress.com is his website, brought me in on this. I've known him for a long time. So happy to be in it with him. And, you know, we're just kind of taking it one day at a time and seeing where those conversations lead, and also trying to figure out who the hell we want to take and sweat on Sunday or Monday.
Who are some of the more prominent teams that you would have left right now?
Yeah, so, I mean, look, you know, I think it's going to be a little bit difficult because at this point in time, there really aren't a whole lot of entries that have many good teams left. You know, I mean, we structured this to the point where we're in decent shape for Christmas. Other entries may be in a little bit better of a position depending on who they still have. But, you know, I mean, this week we've got teams like Houston's out there, Green Bay is out there. You know, Cleveland is still out there. If we want to go with the fight and Joe Flacco's, that could be a possibility as well. You know, the Saints will be a very popular team going up against Carolina since they can't seem to beat anybody. And like I said, we were on the Bucs last week, so that was actually the first time that we've picked against Carolina so far this season, even though they've lost 11 of their 12 games.
Wow. Let's talk strategy for Week 14. And when we heard that you were one of the 30 remaining, we started doing the math. And as Amal said, it's close to your ticket right now you're holding is close to $280K. You obviously have a partner. But then let's go back to what I asked the boys earlier, because I don't know the legalities around this. Is there a chopping scenario? Like if the 30 contestants remaining in Circa got together outside of Circa, I'm not pretending that Circa would have anything to do with this, and you guys started to work out chops, is that a possibility?
Yeah, so Circa can have no part in any of it. Jeff Benson's been pretty clear about that on social media over the last few years. And last year's was split. I don't know how many people actually split it, but they did come to an agreement on it. So, you know, there are some people that kind of help facilitate those types of deals, you know, because there is a lot of legality to it, you know, contracts and all those kinds of things. So it is something that is being discussed by a lot of different people. We have been part of some of those discussions, not just this week, but last week as well. So we're just waiting to kind of see how things sort of shake out. But the big thing is, you know, when you do get down to X number and you talk about splitting, you know, the prize, which obviously the first place prize is the only prize here in this thing, everybody involved has to agree to it. So that is something that, you know, when you've got 30 different entries on top of all the partners that are involved and all of that, getting everybody on the same page, maybe a little bit premature for this week. Who knows? We'll see how all that kind of plays out. But, you know, look, I mean, there's also still 5 games left to pick. So, you know, you got week 14, 15, 16, actually 6, 14, 15, 16, Christmas, and all of that. So there's still a lot left to go here, and a lot of analyzing what your if you use the optimal pick, what your probability is of going perfect and all that. There's so many moving parts that honestly, I'm just happy to be in a position to be part of those discussions.
Two questions for you. Have you guys had any dissenting opinions that have been very much came down to the last second on a pick? And then how many games, Patrick asked a great question earlier regarding Survivor, how many games have you had where the flip of the coin, if it had gone the wrong way, you might be out?
Yeah, I mean, the smallest favorite that we've taken in terms of, kind of looking at spreads, we had the Raiders over the Jets, in the game with Antonio Pierce. I believe it was his first game, second game, whatever that was. That was one that we did have. Last week, I mean, obviously concerning seeing that big line move come in against Tampa Bay, where Carolina basically took money all week long because of Tampa Bay's injury report, interim coach bounce, whatever the case may be. So we definitely sweat that one out. But yeah, the nice thing is, I mean, I've known Mark for a long time, and we do have very productive discussions. We are largely on the same page. Even if we have disagreements with the teams that we're taking, we still come to an agreement, and so far it has worked for us. But, the one that I can think of specifically is a couple of weeks ago, I wanted to take Minnesota on Monday Night Football against the Bears. He liked the Titans, but we both liked the Colts. So we wound up going with the Colts, who did win in their game over the Buccaneers. But that was the one where, things could have gotten a little bit dicey. And my thought process was, look, we can isolate Monday night with the Vikings because there weren't a whole lot of good choices that week. We could isolate Monday night with the Vikings, see what our entry's worth, decide if we want to hedge, see if there's anybody who's interested in getting a piece of it, something like that. Ultimately, we stayed off of them, which was good because it was one of the most depressing games of the year, let alone the fact that the Vikings lost. But that was the closest I think we've been to not really being able to come to an agreement. So fortunately, he trusts me, I trust him, and it's worked out so far, and hopefully we'll continue to.
Vikings, Patrick, real quick, lost that game on Monday Night Football. What happened to Tennessee that weekend?
Tennessee won. They beat, it was the Patriots, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So your partner's like, I'll take it from here, Adam. Adam Burke, VSiN.com. He's our managing editor. Nobody works harder. He's the best. He's got one of 30 remaining in Circa. Amal, just a few years back, got down. What was, you got down to the final. What was the number?
Well, I was in the final 3 weeks, and I was so mad at myself. I switched from my play. I had mapped out for the final 3 weeks, and I switched at the last second because the Bengals were starting Finley, the former NC State quarterback. I'm like, this guy's trash. And, of course, the Steelers lose that game.
Well, that's the issue here.
Speaking of the Steelers, I mean, last week we had Pittsburgh available against Arizona, and that was kind of the starting point that we both went with for the week. And then we were like, okay, but do we want to hold Pittsburgh back and take them on Thursday night against New England? And that's something that we really haven't done a whole lot. We've kind of planned to go 1-0 each week instead of stretching this thing out to go 20-0 and just kind of take what's in front of us and see what happens. So we wind up staying off of Pittsburgh thinking we can save them, and Pittsburgh loses, so we avoided that landmine. But then also, it's hard to take Pittsburgh this week now because Kenny Pickett got hurt. And you wouldn't have thought, and I kind of lamented this last week, I wish I would have saved Jacksonville. We took Jacksonville against the Titans a few weeks ago. I was like, man, I wish we would have saved Jacksonville. Like, now they're facing Jake Browning. They're an 8.5-point favorite. They go up to 10. They still lose the game. So this has been one of those really strange years as well with all the backup and third-string quarterbacks playing where I never would have expected that Cleveland would even be a consideration for us this week, taking on Jacksonville. Now, all of a sudden, we're having the discussion, is this maybe the week that we take Cleveland if Joe Flacco gets the start? Because he honestly looked pretty good. So that's been the interesting thing. Last week was the first time we really played for a future week, and it actually happened to work out for us for the current week. But again, I don't even know if we can entertain the idea of taking Pittsburgh now.
Patrick,
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say real quick. Adam brought up a great point. This has been, forget the fact that he's one of 32 remaining. This year, and you brought it up at the top of the show, the number of injuries for quarterbacks this year, to be able to navigate this has been absolutely sensational. Because if you didn't use the Bengals somewhere in weeks 3 through 10, when are you using them?
We need to pull back the curtain and hear the conversation that you and your partner are having. Because, I mean, I don't, like Amal said, he had 3 weeks to go and he switched it up. I wonder, before you walk us through the conversation, do you start to tighten up a little bit now? You said it was pretty, quote, chill until Detroit loses, and then last night we're all of a sudden, oh my gosh, this is becoming a reality.
Yeah, I mean, the tone of the discussion has changed a little bit in the sense that now it's just about trying to figure out who we want to take. It's also about, how do we position ourselves to make sure that we maximize the equity of this investment? Because, yeah, I mean, I think the average implied value of an entry is around $310,000 now at this point. So, you certainly want to get as much out of that as you possibly can. And it is still, again, like I mentioned, you still have 6 picks to make to actually win this thing. So, there are a lot of those discussions. It's more now than just looking at the matchups and going, okay, who do we like? Who do we think we want to take this week? Now it's also, well, who do we like? Who do other people have? Who kind of benefits us and puts us in a better position, and vice versa? That has dramatically changed for us over the last 2-3 weeks, being able to start, talking to people and have those conversations as opposed to just who do we like? So that's definitely been the biggest change, I think. And, again, I mean, I'm still kind of as chill as I possibly can be. But, I'm sure that will change on Sunday as we're sweating out whatever team we take.
We're talking to our managing editor, Adam Burke, who's one of 30 remaining for the, I believe, $6 million prize in Circa Survivor.
9.
And we had, of course, I'm sorry?
$9 million.
Oh, I only shorted you $3 million? $9 million. And we had our buddy Steve Fezzik on yesterday, who was a Jacksonville covering 8.5 last night away from first place in Circa Millions. And he happened to mention, he's like, look, if, Adam Burke, he said it in passing, but he gave Burke credit. He said, if Adam Burke writes it up at VSiN.com, I'm going to blindly bet it. You're getting a lot of good pub these days, Mr. Burke.
Well, I appreciate that. And, I appreciate that you plugged the free bull betting guide because, it's a 16-page PDF over there at VSiN.com. We're just trying to get, some email addresses so you get part of the newsletter, but you will get that free guide. And also, our bowl game previews will come out with at least 72 hours lead time. So those will be posted individually over at VSiN.com because we wanted to make sure that we had the most up-to-date information to give you along with lead time for those bowl games with opt-outs, transfer portal, line moves, all that kind of thing.
Who's going to put these guides together when you win?
Well, wait. Hold on. We have to discuss this. So Len asked him, and again, I think we all agree to wake up and talk about sports that we're pretty lucky, and we all admit how lucky we are to do this, so we can start there. But work is work and life is life. So Adam Burke has a potential. So right now, with 30 remaining, he's holding a ticket with he and his partner. That's right around $280,000. Let's just say 15 get bounced this weekend and you're still alive. I can do math pretty good. That's close to $600,000 with the ticket in your hand. Like, at what point do the three of you, I'm going to leave myself out of this answer. At what point do the three of you, with what amount of money, start thinking, maybe work isn't for me? Let's go. Let's have an open, honest discussion about it. I'll start with Dustin because he's the donk on the set there.
Like, the money is almost irrelevant. It's the ego for me. That's the reason I do everything. I would keep working. I'd keep doing everything. I'd be really annoying. I guess the question is, would I up the amount I bet? No, because I have millions of dollars in the bank. What would be the point?
I would agree with that. Patrick, unfortunately, it depends on how many people end up winning this thing, right? If there's 9 people you're walking out with $1 million, you'll see me on Monday. But if there's like 4 people and I'm walking out with 2+, I'm good. I can stretch it out for a long, long time. I'm good.
Now the man that actually has a discussion to have with his wife. Now, here's the thing about being the managing editor over at VSiN.com. It's time-consuming. It's a lot of work, but it's obviously very rewarding work. We're lucky to do it. So I'm guessing you're going to stick around, Adam?
I mean, look, at this point in time, with kind of the way that everything's shaking out, I agree with everything that Amal said. I mean, no one's going to win this thing outright, I don't think. And certainly by then, everyone's going to have partnerships. Pieces and parts are going to be chopped up, all that kind of thing. I mean, this isn't going to be like FU money. There's no way it's going to be that, no matter who winds up making it all the way through. So, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't put a number on it. I'm sure I'll still be here, regardless of what happens here with the Survivor entry. But it is one of those things, right? I mean, you buy that Mega Millions ticket when the lotto drawing is $700 million, and you start thinking about what you would do with that money. I haven't even gotten to that point yet. So I'm just taking it, like I said, one day at a time. And I'll go ahead and just kind of keep using the cliches that athletes use after games. Just one day at a time, not getting ahead of myself, all that kind of thing.
But to Adam's credit,
Adam Burke just turned into Mike Tomlin all of a sudden. What the hell just happened?
We want volunteers. We don't want hostages.
Well, no, you have to at least drop the managing part of your title. Like, you shouldn't be managing anything at that point. All you should be managing is your damn portfolio.
That's fair. But it does. But here's the thing. Let's say they walk out each with $500,000, and post-tax you're clearing $300,000, whatever it may be. But it does alleviate a lot of stress, right? Like if you've got a mortgage, you can pay it off or close to it, whatever it may be the situation. That just changes the dynamics. It alleviates. By the way, I'll tell you one thing. Adam's eventually going to wind up becoming a writer for Rolling Stone because he'll have attended every concert in town for the next 2 years. He'll be able to write a summation for it. But this time he'll be getting paid to go.
Well, if he filed for bankruptcy, he wouldn't stop going to concerts. Okay,
I wouldn't eat. I'd go to concerts before I'd eat. I'd lose a hell of a lot of weight though.
Trust me, he would not. It's just like Amal said. Money doesn't make you happy, but it does make things a little bit easier in life. So we're hoping for you that this comes through. So let's pull back the curtain on this week. If you wouldn't mind, it doesn't affect anybody. You're not giving anybody a tip, or you can tell us as much as you want. What's the conversation you and your partner are having about Week 14?
Well, the first conversation, just simply because the lead time is Thursday night. Do we feel comfortable taking Pittsburgh with Mitch Trubisky and a Patriots offense that can't score? I mean, they've scored 13 points in the last 3 games. So, is Pittsburgh's defense going to be good enough to carry them? Do we want to take that play? Because I think in some respects, there won't be a whole lot of people lining up to take that one. A lot of people are going to look at Houston and Green Bay, and if you look at most of the entries that are left in this contest, they do have one or both of those teams. So the thought is, do we roll the dice with Pittsburgh? Do we isolate that standalone game and try to go ahead and move on and then see what happens on Sunday? Because if we get the same thing that we got last week where both the Steelers and the Jaguars go down and all of a sudden we're sitting there with Pittsburgh already, in the bag, then that certainly dictates a lot of things, for next week when we start having some of these discussions. But then you also look at it and it's like, okay, Zach Wilson doesn't want to play anymore. How many other Jets want to continue to play throughout the rest of this season? Is Houston a good pick? Now, weather is a consideration in that game. It's going to be windy. It's going to be a little bit rainy. The Texans can't really run the football. They have to throw it. Are the weather conditions enough for the Jets to maybe make that game ugly and kind of make things really interesting? And then you've got, like I said, do you just go ahead and take Joe Flacco and the Browns against C.J. Beathard going up against that Browns defense? Is that a play that you make where Jacksonville maybe kind of reeling a little bit from Lawrence likely not being able to play in that game? So that's another one that we have at our disposal. And then there's also, there's one entry that still has Miami. So we'll see. I'm sure they'll take them against Tennessee on Monday. Green Bay. Jordan Love looks really, really good all of a sudden. And the Giants, despite their recent resurgence, they still have Tommy DeVito at quarterback. So those are kind of the thoughts that we have, and we're sort of going through and being like, what's 1A, what's number 2, is there a 1B, all that kind of thing.
So once you decide on your picks here, and maybe you've already started doing this because it's gotten whittled down to so few participants, have you started, because you're going to take favorites here, have you started taking the dogs as a hedge? Have you started doing that, or are you about to start doing that with how much money is now on the line?
Right. So that's a discussion that, we are now having, because it is one of those things where, I make an okay living, but I'm not like super, super liquid. So it's how can we structure this to where we are liquid enough to be able to play the other sides? Because to Dustin's point, like, you don't have to take the money line on the other side. You can take plus 6.5 and hope you get a middle.
Really nice spot in the end.
So there's a lot of that. We could have did that with Tampa Bay and Carolina last week, where Carolina was good up to any number. So that is a discussion that we are having, because now at this point in time, like I said, the last thing you want to do is get to a point where you have this much equity in your entry and not maximize that at least as much as you possibly can. So kind of mobilizing to have that amount of bankroll available to be able to kind of play on the other sides or play some of these middles is definitely part of the discussion this week for sure.
It's a great point. I remember a couple of years ago, the Chiefs were playing the Broncos on I think it was a Saturday game. and the Chiefs were laying about 10.5 on the road. You could have taken the Broncos as your hedge play, but gotten 10.5. And somebody was going to bet, I think, like 300,000 on it. They ended up, I'm sorry?
Billy Chippis.
Okay, I don't know the person. Okay, and they ended up middling it, right? It was a great opportunity there. So, by the way, the one thing, Patrick, what's tough this weekend is just going through the games. You have 12 games that are 6.5 points or less. Because over about the last 4 weeks, we've seen a plethora of games that are 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13-point lines. A lot tighter this week, minus the Dolphins game there and a couple other games.
Okay, so let's do this. The three of us have to give Burke, he's laid out the scenario. We have to give him what we would do in this situation. VSiN's managing editor, Adam Burke, joins us. He had a lot to do with putting that bowl guide together and a lot to do with everything you see at VSiN.com, which is looking spectacular. Make sure you go check it out. More spectacular, the $280,000 he's holding. Well, that's what one ticket with 30 remaining in Circa Survivor adds up to. Adam Burke and his partner killing it right now. So here's the challenge I gave to Amal and Dustin. We know they have Pittsburgh remaining coming up on Thursday hosting New England. We know they've got Cleveland coming up Sunday hosting Jacksonville. We know they've got Houston remaining. They're going to be at the Jets. We know they've got Green Bay remaining. And, of course, Green Bay is, fellas, that's Monday night at the Giants. We know they've got San Francisco remaining, but that is a team they need to save for Christmas. Now, how much of this comes down to planning for the future and just trying to scrap and survive once you're down to the final 30? Dustin, Amal, who would you suggest if you were in Burke and his teammates' position here for Circa Survivor?
I would go with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You have a short week against a team that has managed to score 13 points over their last 3 games, despite Mitchell Trubisky's ineptitude. I think Adam brought it up earlier. They're going to struggle to score against this Steelers team. I like the short week in favor of Pittsburgh. I think, Patrick, you mentioned it, or Dustin mentioned it, Tomlin coming off of a loss. And then the reason why I say that is, even though Green Bay, to me, looks like probably, outside of the Miami Dolphins, arguably one of the better plays this weekend, Green Bay hosts Tampa next week. And then in 2 weeks, you could potentially use them as well, as the Packers are on the road at Carolina.
Okay, there it is. 1 vote for the Steelers. Big guy, what do you got?
I wanted to say the Steelers, but I have major fears about Belichick and Thursday Night Football and weird things happening. I also don't want to use Green Bay, and it has nothing to do with on the field. I don't want to wait till Monday. That's just too much torture to sit there the whole Sunday and try to see where we fit in, right? I'm going to go with the Houston Texans at the Jets. They don't know who's playing quarterback, and it doesn't matter who. They're not scoring points. I just think Houston finds a way on the road, and they get a win in New Jersey.
Well, good news for Adam Burke and his partner. No consensus. All 3 different. And that gives you an idea of what the hell they're involved in right now.
Wait,
because there's a lot of money on the line.
Patrick, what was your pick?
I am taking... Look, I said it. I actually thought Cleveland played their asses off here in Los Angeles last week. Beathard is... Who's worse than Beathard on the planet right now playing the position?
Ooh.
Anyone?
He's unemployed. I was going to say Tim Boyle.
Tim Boyle, that's a good one.
Mac Jones?
Though Tim Boyle has a better chance of hanging out with me here this weekend than playing football because he, like you said, is unemployed. C.J. Beathard is as bad as it gets. That Cleveland defense, Cleveland's got a ton to play for. The defense is ferocious. They're at home. I am going to take Joe Flacco for $280,000 moving forward, please, and the Cleveland Browns. So, again, I think this is a good exercise because it shows you just how tough the decision is. Amal goes Pittsburgh on Thursday. I go Cleveland on Sunday, and the big guy goes Houston on the road at the Jets. Adam, good luck.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. And look, I mean, again, the difficult thing in all of this is, you know, as Amal mentioned, I mean, next week, Green Bay's at home against Tampa Bay. In Week 17, Cleveland's at home against the Jets, who may have so many other cares in the world than that actual football game.
Yeah.
So that's the tough part, you know, is do you play for the 1-0 this week? Do you think about what also positions yourself the best to go out there and win? And I think Amal would be a good person to ask about this because Amal has such a, you know, a long time background in playing poker where, like, when you're in a tournament setting, right? Are you sitting there thinking about, playing for getting into the money or playing for a top 10 spot, or are you playing to win the damn thing? That's the hard part, I think, about all of this, and something that, honestly, it's an unfamiliar position for us, but it is something to kind of think about is like, okay, well, let's say that we do wait until Monday night and take Green Bay. Well, then we know how many people are left. So then we know exactly how to hedge or like what our implied value is, stuff like that. So all this stuff comes into play.
It's a great point Adam brings up. In tournaments, Patrick, sometimes people will just sit around and literally wait. They will have pocket aces, and they will throw them away just because they want to get into the money. And I think Adam brings up a great point. Quick question for you. Let's say you take the Packers or somebody else takes the Dolphins, and the other 30 people are eliminated, and there's yourself and the person on the Dolphins going into Monday night. What is the stipulation in terms of the let's say you guys both got bounced. The Dolphins lose to the Titans and the Packers lose to the Giants. Because you survived until Monday, do you win, or how does that work? Does it revert back to the previous week?
I genuinely don't know the answer to that question. I would assume it would revert back because, technically you didn't get through the week surviving, right? So I would assume it would revert back, and then it would get chopped across all 30.
I believe that's what would happen.
Yeah,
because it's not about making it to week 17. It's whoever, because this thing could end in 3 weeks, right? 2 weeks, whatever.
Right. What would be really interesting is if that scenario played out and somebody who lost with Pittsburgh on Thursday night just had to spend 4 agonizing days and they chop it anyway.
Have you been walking around the house peacocking, telling your wife to address you as her knight in shining armor?
No, absolutely not. Maybe it's just kind of my background and just sort of knowing what happens as a Cleveland sports fan and all that. I have not been really thinking ahead much at all. I mean, like I said, I've been trying to stay in the moment, trying to be humble may not even be the word.
Coach speak.
Just kind of, just sort of taking in
1 foot in front of the other. Yeah. 1 foot in front of the other. Take it one.
I thought Adam made one great point that I didn't think about. He goes, we still have to make 6 picks. I didn't realize it was still that many picks when you think about it.
I'm kind of thinking of it just shortening up the field. I'm thinking get it down to 20 to 15, and then I think people start to really get hyper about chopping.
Well, especially at $600,000. You're right, Patrick. Absolutely.
If you cut it in half and you're still alive, I think the chopping conversation is going to be very prevalent.
Have you thought about, taking some of the potential winnings and how much a hitman would cost to take out each contestant one by one?
I was going to
you're talking murder?
Yeah, murder. It might be the cheapest solution here.
I didn't want to ask this question, but now that you've gone this way, I'm going to ask, who gets the official entry, you or your partner here? Because there's 4.5 million reasons to say.
Taxes on this.
There's 4.5 million reasons to say, see ya.
All right, I'm not going to get involved in that whole discussion here, nor am I going to implicate myself in terms of looking for hitmen.
No, but
I want you, your partner, and Derek Stevens with the inflated check with a big smile on Berkey's face. That's what I can't wait for. This is exciting. This will be the last season of Berkey Tuesdays on Sharp Money. We can officially tell you that.
He's definitely not coming all the way down here to do the hit in person, I can tell you that.
No. Well, maybe a limo if we send it.
I would come down here, but someone would carry me down Fremont.
Like a Greek king.
He's going to stay employed. He's just an FU employee. Where if the bosses mess with him, there's equity in the bank.
Middle of the day, just, hey, I'm going to go home now. What do you mean?
I've decided I don't want to manage. I've decided I don't want to manage this week, but I'll do it next week. He just calls his shots. All right. Well, all right. We just say a quick little prayer for Adam Burke and his partner, and we move on. Was there anything? Jacksonville was still kind of playing for a 1 seed yesterday. You're thankful not that Lawrence got hurt, but that a bunch of Survivor contests got knocked out. What'd you take from that last night, Adam?
I will be 100% honest with you. I didn't even watch the game. I just
Really?
Honestly, so I don't know if it's just superstition or the fact that I've already been diagnosed with high blood pressure. I've kind of just been sort of box score checking every few minutes on the sides that we have. I haven't even watched the games, to be honest with you.
That's fair.
It's enough of a sweat just kind of thinking about it all I don't want to agonize over it any more than I already have to. Plus, I'm not a healthy guy. I don't eat particularly well. Like, the last thing I want to do is croak before, something actually happens.
Oh, can you imagine if you have to waste some of this money on, like, a heart surgery or something? It'd be such a waste of money.
That'd be... Yeah.
By the way,
It'd be
last
terrible
night,
if you died before you got really rich.
Your partner, though, wouldn't hate it.
Your partner's like, yeah, that'd be terrible if you died, Adam.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.